Hello members, and welcome to our third class of learning how to create web application from the beginner level or from scratch. Today is going to make our third class, and you're going to resume from where we stopped at in the previous class. In the previous class, if you can remember, we stopped at at HTML tables, and today we're going to look at HTML lists. So I'll assume that everyone here is practicing what I'm teaching, because after next week I'll start checking one by one and see whether you guys are really doing something or not. And if I find some people who are not doing anything or who are not trying to do what I try to tell you to do, then I'll let them go out of the course. Yeah, because here we concentrate on learning and you have to invest in what it takes. So if you're just there mediocring, we'll help you and let you out of the course in case you're not practicing. So I hope you're practicing, and I hope you keep on practicing. I hope you're searching from other sources. That's how I always advise you. So with that brief introduction, let us start from where we stopped at in the previous classes. And what I'm going to begin with, I'm going to begin by launching my IDE, or what we call text editor, which is VS Code. At this level, everyone should be understanding what is meant by VS Code, why we need it, and what we use it for. And after launching VS Code, I'm going to open our project that I will use for HTML. So I'll simply come to Browse and then click on Open Folder, and then I'm going to go to Desktop and look for our HTML folder, which is here. So I'm going to open it, and we'll be able to start doing what we're supposed to do. So last time we stopped at HTML tables. Let me hope that everyone has been practicing and you have understood what is meant by HTML tables and why we need them and how we use them. So without wasting much time, we're going to begin by looking at HTML lists. So we use HTML lists to create lists in web application or in websites. If you want to create a list, either ordered list or unordered list, we use what we call HTML lists, and that's what we're going to look at. So I'm going to create a new file and call it HTML list. So I'll simply come here to my file and create new, and I'm going to call it number 19. Just simply come here, create new file, 19 underscore HTML underscore lists.html. So there we go. I'm going to create here my HTML structure by selecting HTML5, and then I'm going to put here HTML lists. Then after doing that, I'm going now to create our list. So to create a list, as how it sounds, we use it just write lists. So if I want to create a list, there are two types of lists. You have the first one, it's called ordered list. Ordered list is the list with numbers, which is numbered. It can be Roman numerals, it can be other way of numbers. Another type of list is called an ordered list. And an ordered list is the one which you can use just points or bullets to create that list. So let me go ahead and create here an ordered list. So to create an ordered list, you just simply create a tag of UL, okay, which stands for an ordered list. And then you start adding their items. So to add items in your list, you just simply write LI. LI stands for list item. So there are going to be items inside our what? Inside our list. So let me go and add there maybe mangoes, some fruits, mangoes, and add there maybe lemons, and add there maybe jackfruits. So that is our unordered list. So by doing like this, we'll have created a list that is not ordered. So let's go ahead and run this file and we'll see what we'll come up with. So I'll come to my browser. Let me open a new browser. And open a file by simply clicking Ctrl-O, and then come to desktop and look for HTML and look for the last file I've just created, this one, 19 lists. So when I open it, you can see I have that list of bullets. Okay, so that's how you create a list in HTML. So, and that's how to call an ordered list. That's what you call an ordered list. You just simply write a tag of UL, and inside it you put LIs, and inside those LIs you list what you want to be listed in this format. So we have another type of list, we call it ordered list. As we just said, ordered list, we use it to do what? To count, like we use it to count, for counting, okay? So let me say here, I had maybe some heading and call it fruits. So I'm going to put here maybe most popular, okay, I can say top 3 populated countries in Africa. So you realize that when you're creating lists, some lists you don't need to order them, and some lists you may need to order them. For example, here we want to list the top 3 most populated countries in what? In Africa. So it means that the order will matter. If you, for example, creating a music application, a music application, and then you want to write maybe the top 10. So the top 10 songs, it means that you'll have to, the numbering will do what? Will matter. So let me list here the most populated countries in what? In Africa. So I'll simply create my ordered list. So to create ordered list, write OL like that, okay? Then write list item, LI, okay? So the most populated country in Africa, of course, Nigeria. It is followed by Ethiopia, and followed by Egypt, and then Congo. But I said 3. So these are the top populated countries in what? In Africa. As you can see, they are OL, so it means that they're going to be, it's going to be ordered. What to call ordered list. So let me go ahead and refresh my file. Refresh. You see, these are on top, they're just fruits, but this one are top 3 populated countries in Africa. The first one, you can see it is having 1. The second one, 2, 3. We are not the one who wrote this 1, 2, 3, but because we created the ordered list, that's why we're able to get this numbering automatically added in our list. So next time you want to create a list, first consider whether it needs numbers or not. If it doesn't need numbers, then you'll go for an ordered list. If it needs numbering, then you have to go for the ordered list. So this ordered list, we can still change them to another listing type. For example, you want to use A, B, C, D, something like that. Okay? Maybe put here maybe H3 steps, or I can say options. Okay, options. So options is going to be ordered list, and then maybe I can put LI. I can put maybe social media. Okay, social media. I can put maybe, now we have maybe Facebook, I have Twitter, I maybe have TikTok, whatever, talk. I don't know how it's written, like this, TikTok, maybe. So if I save, come and refresh, this is also ordered list, okay? So if I want to change the type of numbering, you just simply come and put here what you call type, okay? So input type, you have these possible types. You have 1, 2, 3, or you have A, B, C, D. So you can have 1 up to the numbering, so it will be in numbers. Here, if you put type 1, it will be the default one, like this. You see? So if you want it to start from capital A and A, B, C, D like that, just put capital A, it will be A, B, C, D in capitals. If you put small a, it will be small a, B, C, D in capital. If you put Romans like capital small I, it will be, you see, we are changing the numbering type. So that is how we create a listing in listings in what? In HTML. So in your free time, come and play with that. Okay. So we proceed to block and inline elements. So in HTML, all the elements that we have, they have two types. It is either a block element or an inline element. A block element is the one that will spend 100% width of its container. I repeat, a block element is the type of element that will spend 100% width of its container. Then inline element, it is the type of element that will just spend, it will stop where its content stops. So if it is having, maybe where the content stops, if it's having the content that is less than the full width of a container, that's where that element will stop from. But the block element will spend 100% of the width of the container that is containing it. So to do that, I'm going to elaborate by creating a new file called HTML blocks. So I'll simply come here and create another file. Right click, new file. So it can be number 20 underscore HTML blocks.html. So after doing that, I'm going to put here our HTML structure, and then I'm going to put here HTML block. Okay, HTML lab block and inline elements. Okay, so I will say that the inline element will create 100% width of its container. So we have different types of block elements. Let us begin with block elements. For them, they will spend 100% width of what? Of its container. So to do that, I'm just going to simply create a block element. So as you proceed, you will have to know which one is a block element or which one is an inline element. So each element of HTML lies under one of those two. It is either inline element or a block element. So let's go ahead and create a block element. So paragraph is a block element. For example, if I say simple paragraph, okay? Paragraph 1, simple paragraph 1. And then I create here another simple paragraph 2. So what you're expecting, even if I put it here on the same line, you see, what you're going to expect, this one is going to come on what? On new line. Even though we put them on the same line and save, okay? So let me go ahead and open this. You can see, simple paragraph is completing the whole line, and this one is completing the whole line. In other words, let me put here just some simple style. If you still remember styling, I'm going to put here some styling, style, and we see where a certain element stops from. So I'm going to say, I'm going to create a class. Oh, you guys may not be understanding what. Do you look at classes? It's going to be the next thing, in fact, after here. So to create a class, just put a dot, and then you give the name of this class. Don't mind about the class. We're going to explain to the next topic. So to create a class, just put a dot inside the style, and then you give it the name of this class. Maybe I'm going to call this class red, and then I define this class by having background color of red and text color of white. Okay, and I'm going to define another class. I'm going to call it what? Blue. And then it's going to have the background color of blue and the text of white. So let us see. We are going to see where this HTML, where this the word simple paragraph stops. So we just simply put here a class. We give it a class, and we have defined these classes here. So I mean that if I give it this element a class of red, it's going to implement this. And if I give this one a class of what? A class of blue, it's going to implement the second one. So let's go ahead and refresh. So if you refresh, you'll see this red, even though the content stops from here. Can you see? The content stops from here. But you can see the red starts from here up to here. It spans the whole container. It spans the whole width of the what? Of the container. So this type of element, we call them what? We call them block element. The one that spans 100% of the width of the container that contains them. We call them what? We call them block elements. If I create another, that's what meant by block element. So we have a list of block elements. A paragraph is a block element. Is a block element. Address is a block element. HR is a block element. LI. So every item that you're going to use in HTML, it will lie under one of what? One of the two. It is either a block element or an inline element. So go and search and find out examples of what? Of block elements. Let me put them here in comment. This is how you comment in HTML as discussed. So this is a list of block elements. So address is a block element. Article is a block element. Is a block element, not broke. Is a block element. Aside is a block element. Blockquote. So all these ones that you see in this list, they are what? They are block elements. So we have another block element called div. So everything that we do, you'll have to, you say this one, this div, we'll use it so much when we proceed. So everything that you look at, it will either be a block element or inline element. So these are the list of block elements. You can go and search them and find them. HTML block elements, you'll find them. Let me put here a H1 tag, a H2 tag, and call all the heading tags, they are block elements. So heading 1 up to heading 6, they are all what? They are all block elements. They'll spend 100% of the width of an element, of a container that it contains them. So let me name this one as what? As block elements. So let us go ahead. So this, I'll share with you maybe this code one day and then you'll be able to see them. So let us go ahead and create an inline element. So to create inline element, we have different examples of inline elements. Among inline elements, we have a span tag, we have a link, we have a B tag, we have a image tag, input tag. All of those are what? They are what? They are inline element. So let me go ahead and create here a heading 2 and call this one inline elements. So we have said that, for example, a link. So let me create a link. If you still remember, we looked at links. So I'm going to create a new link here, and I'm going to make it href to hash, okay? And you remember we discussed about links. So if you did not practice, then you should be lost. But if you practice, then you should be understanding what I'm talking about. So I can say this is a simple link. So if I save, I come and refresh, you see, this is a simple link. Now let us determine and see where it stops by giving it just a class, okay? And so it stops. So I'm going to just simply come here and give this link a what? A class maybe of red, because I already defined here classes. So let us give it a class of red and see where it stops. So if I come and refresh, you can see that. Can you see that? Where the content of the link stops, it is where the link also stops. It means that even if I create here the second link like this, you see, this is the second one. Let me call it simple link 1, and then I call this one simple link 2. Let me give this one blue so you can differentiate them. Class of blue. Come and refresh. Can you see that? Where this content stopped at, it's where the second one started from. So this type of elements which does not spend 100%, as you can see here in paragraph, the content stops here, but it spends 100% up to this point. So this kind of elements, we call them inline elements. These kind of elements that spend 100% of the width width of a container that contains them, we call them block elements. So you should learn how to differentiate the two. These are not called block elements. These are not called what? Inline elements. So you have many examples of inline elements. So an abbreviation ABBR is an inline element. A block, a B tag. Let me list them here. A B tag is an inline element. Okay. Let me comment them. So A tag is inline element. ABBR is inline element. Acronym is inline element. B tag, if you still remember the B tag, the one that bolds something, is line element. This element that you're seeing here, all of them, they are what? They are inline element. A button is an inline element. A site is an inline element. A code is an inline element. So when you practice, always consider and check out if an element is either inline or block element. So by this definition, you can now tell an element that just spends a minimum space that of content that it contains is called inline element. An element that spends 100% width of a container that contains it, we call them block elements. So that's a simple definition. So all HTML elements lie under one of these categories, either an inline element, either a block element, or inline element. So you proceed to classes. So what is a class? What is a HTML class? We use HTML classes. Attribute is an HTML class is an attribute that we use to specify where some rules, or that we use to group so that we can implement some rules of either CSS or JavaScript. So a class can help us to group elements. As you can see here, I created for you a class called red, and then we use that class to what? To paint different elements here. So that's how we use a class. We use a class to target elements of what? Of HTML. I repeat, we use a class to target a group of HTML elements when you're writing either CSS or JavaScript. So let us go ahead and elaborate HTML classes. So I'll simply create a new file and name it HTML class. So I'll come here and create a new file, name it number 21 underscore HTML classes.html. So I'm going to create here our HTML5 structure, and then I'm going to call this one HTML classes. So if you have your content and you want to organize it, you want to design it, you will always find that you need HTML classes to design those content. So to create a class, you simply define it, okay? So to define a class, you come here in head and write style, okay? So you can say, I'm going to create a class called what? Called a product, okay? I'm going to create a class called product. So to do that, you just simply do like this, put full stop. So when you put full stop, it means that you're going to define a class, okay? So you give a class a name. I'm going to call it product. You can give it any name that you want, but that name should be a single string, and then you should not have also a dot. So open the curly bracket and then do like this. So in here, I'm going to define the properties of my class. So I can say this class should have a background color of what? Of maybe black, and it should have the text color of text should be maybe green, okay? Then you should have width, okay, of maybe 300 pixels. So I'm defining my what? My class. So we use a new element that we have not heard about. We call it div, which we said also it is a what? It is an inline element. I mean, it's a block element. We use container elements to specify where our rules should start and where they should stop. But these container elements, they don't display on our screen. One of the container elements that we have what we call div, okay? We have what we call div, and another element another container element we call it span. So these are the two container elements. They will not appear on our screen, but we'll only use them to structure our content. This one is a block element by default, and then this one is what? Is an inline element by default. This one will spend 100%. This one will spend what? Minimum as possible. So let us go ahead and create our product. So I'm going to create here my div. So we have said that div will not appear on the screen. For example, if I write like this div will not affect anything. So let me go ahead and open the classes. This one here. You can see, you cannot see div. It cannot do anything there. But its purpose is to define where the rules of either HTML, of either CSS or JavaScript should start and where they should stop. So let's go ahead and give it, maybe inside this div, it is a container now. This is a container will start from here up to here. So let's go ahead and create maybe some h2 tags and maybe call a name of a product called maybe MyFi. I'll say MTN MyFi, and then give it price, maybe 31,000 UGX. I can begin with UGX, and then maybe warranty, two years. Or you can say 12 months. So that's our product. So that's our product. If you come and refresh, it is surrounded by div. If you come and refresh, this is just a simple product. Okay. So I can create even see maybe two products. I can say maybe this. Let this one become the second product. Call it Airtel SIM card. Maybe it is 2,000, 3,000, and warranty is 6 months. So if you come and refresh, can you see we have these two here? Okay, this is a first product, this is a second product. This is a first product, this is a second product. So we're going to target this product and make them appear better. Maybe we're going to give them some design. So what we're going to do, we have written our classes. So I've written a class called what? Called product, which will have maybe background color of green and text color of white. Okay, and maybe okay, let us leave that. We can even give them border. This is our right border. Just put 1 pixel. Then say solid, and maybe what else do you define the color? Red. So that's how I write the borders. So we want to design this product to have some good design. So we have defined here our class, and this is how we define a class. Just simply put dot and the name of the class. Now this class we have not used it. So once you define a class, you can use it on what? On multiple elements. They can be even 1,000 elements, but you can use it. So I'm going to use this class on these two products. Okay. So I'll just simply put here and give it a what? A class, and give it a product. Okay. I'll come and also give this another product a what? A class, and call it product. So that's what is meant by class. We just use it to do what? To target some content in what? In HTML. So if you come and refresh, beautiful. You cannot see the difference. So let me put here maybe some BR tag to separate the line. So if I refresh, you can see we have. But what made this? Did we write the CSS 2 times? No, we wrote it only 1 time here, and defined this as the class, and we're able just to implement this class in different items, and it worked. So that is how we write CSS using a class, and then we just use those classes after defining them. So after doing that, we are going to proceed to creating what? An ID. So an ID, we also use it to target elements of HTML. So you can define as many classes as you want, as many classes as you want, and then you can use them in many instances, or in many on so many elements as you want, as you've seen there. So it will depend on your creativity and how you can use this knowledge. But the big thing is you should get the concept. So once I've defined that, we're going to look at another thing called an ID. So an ID, for it to use it to define a single element in a whole HTML in HTML document. For example, in this document that we just created, this one, we cannot have two elements with same what? With same ID. That one will make an error, and that's not the purpose of an ID. Every element inside our HTML document, it must have a single ID. It must have a single ID, but you cannot have multiple IDs with the same names. So if, let us say, we are going to create here, we're going to give all the title. I mean, we're going to give maybe this. We're going to create here maybe a seller. Okay. I'm going to put here maybe our H1 Mohindo's shop. So this is the title. Okay, and expect the title to be 1 on the whole HTML content. So if I want to now style this one, since it is only 1, of course your document will always have one title. So if I want to to target this document, I have to give it an ID. I mean, this element, I have to give it what? An ID. You can use classes, but if you want to identify it uniquely, you have to use an ID. So to use an ID, you just simply put ID and then the name of the ID. I'm going to call this ID title, or I can call it my title. So if we save and refresh, everything will be okay and nothing will change. Why? We have not defined the rules. Okay. So I'm going to create now an ID, how you can target it using CSS. So to target an ID, so here we use the dot to target a class. So to target an ID, use the hash, others called pound. Okay, use hash like this, and then write the name of the ID. So I'll come here and give maybe my ID color of green. So it means that the text in my ID is going to have the color of what? Of green. So, and you have to use this ID only one time. Don't come and create another element and give the same ID. Okay? If you want to define another ID, it's okay. But a certain particular ID with a certain name, it must work only one time in the entire HTML content. In the entire HTML what? Entire HTML document. So you can see we're having our ID there that is pointing only the title, and then these are classes. So I can even come here and increase the what? The font size, maybe 20, 30 pixels. So if I come and refresh, that's 30 pixels. I want to resize it, 50, maybe 40. 42, okay, let me leave that. Okay, so if I come and refresh, you can see we're able to target the ID, a certain element using an ID, and we're able to target multiple elements using classes. Okay, so you define class one time and use it many times. You define ID one time and use it only one time in a certain document. Don't use the same ID on multiple what? On multiple elements. I hope I'm loud and clear. Okay, so we can use IDs on titles and the rest. So we proceed to, we have looked at HTML classes and what? And IDs. So let us proceed to another thing. We're going to proceed to HTML forms. So this is a very, very serious part of HTML when you start dealing with forms. So why do we need forms? So we need forms to collect data from users. So at this moment, if you're really curious, you would have started asking yourself, now what if I want users to register on my website? I want to collect the content or the names or the information from users. How can I get that information? How can I allow people to enter information in my website? So to collect information from your website, we use what we call HTML forms. HTML forms can collect text input, can collect text area input, can collect buttons, can collect options, can collect many things, many different elements. Okay, so use HTML elements to do what? To collect data from users or from the public. So let's go ahead and create and look at these HTML elements, different HTML forms. Okay, so I'll just simply create here another file. You can simply click here. Click here. So I'm going to call it number what? It's file number 22. 22. Sorry. File number 22 HTML underscore forms dot HTML. Okay. So after doing that, let us go ahead and create our structure of HTML what? HTML5, and we're gonna call these ones HTML forms. Okay, save. Come and let us come and open it here. Ctrl O, and then put here. Okay, so after doing that, let us look at how we can create HTML forms. So to create HTML forms, we use what we call the HTML tag. So the HTML tag will allow us to start a form. So to start a form, you just simply write the word form like this, okay? And then you write a tag like this one. So in between here is where you're going to put what? We're going to put what? HTML form elements. So those HTML form elements, they are different form elements that will allow us to collect data from where? From users. So let's go ahead and create our first form. So you can see this is a form tag that I've just created here. Let us go ahead and collect our first element. So let us look at different elements of what? Of HTML. So we have what we call input. So this input, you just simply write an input like this. Okay. And then you give it a type. We'll look at different types of what? Of inputs. This is very, very important. You should really be careful. You should really be serious about these HTML forms, because our application that we'll be creating will be much more depending on the data that the users are entering. So you have to understand different HTML form elements that you have to use in your projects or in applications. So you can see input, and it's having a type of text. So it means that that is going to be an input that allows text. Can you see that? If you have never done that, now you can start. I am able to do what? To type something inside the browser. I can search, I can do anything. So that's how, and this is just a simple input tag that will enable us to create a space that someone can enter a word and send it to you, or send it to your server. So after doing that, let us look at different types of input. So we have a text input, as you can see it there. We have another type of input called radio. So these radios, you can choose one of them. So to do that, let me give here a name. Maybe we're going to call it sex, and value, I'm going to call it male, and create another one called female. Save. So for this element to be radio, you must give it what? Same names. So if I come and refresh, value, value. To submit value. So can you see? We can call this one male, put a BR tag, and call this one female. Save, come and refresh. Put here, so BR here. They are inline elements, that's why I see one is following the other. Save, refresh, you can see we have male or female. So the meaning of radio elements, you can pick only one. You can either pick this one or this one, because you cannot be both unless you're what? Unless you're transgender. So I can either be male or female. And how can we do that? We use that by the power of input of type of radio. So we proceed. We have other types of input. Another type of input is called a checkbox. We use this checkbox to collect, most especially, an element which can have multiple choices or a single choice. So to write a checkbox, just write input and give it a type, and then call checkbox. So for example, you can say agree or accept our terms and conditions, something like that. So if I come and refresh here, you'll say I have a checkbox where I can either check and I say, okay, I've accepted the terms and conditions. So terms and conditions. So that's what is called by what? By HTML checkbox. And that's why I say, if you really never practice this, please practice and make sure that you write in them by yourself, so you can understand how these things can help you when you're creating different applications. After doing that, let me go ahead and create another type of element, which is called button. So this input can also be a what? Can also be a button. Okay, so just simply give it a name, maybe submit, and then give it a name called what? Called button. I mean value called whatever. So you can call it maybe button, maybe save. So you see the main point here is the type of button. The type is what? Is button. So I've looked at the 4 different types. We have text, radio, checkbox, and the button. Those are 4 different types of what? Of HTML. Can you see? This is a button of HTML input elements. So if I come and refresh, you can see we have a button. So this button, you can even put the text here inside the value, and that's what will be reflected inside the what? Inside the button. So you see, I'm able to create an input, I'm able to create a radio, I'm able to create a what? A checkbox, I'm able to create a button. So that's how we create those elements of input in what? In HTML. So we're going to look at another important thing called label. So a label, it helps us to label something so that they should be able to click on it. For example, you see here, when I'm viewing, I may fail to tell which one is male. Eh? Can you see? I cannot click on this text. I cannot click on this text. But if you want this text to be clickable, let me say, for example, you have something called name, maybe a Peter called name, and after name, we collect the sex, and after sex, I put 6 here on top. Sorry, yeah. And then this name should come also on top here. Okay, so we have name, we have sex, and the sex has 2 options, either male or female. We have another type called checkbox, maybe accept our terms and then maybe submit. So by doing like that, we'll have designed our simple form, just a simple form. Can you see? Name and then sex, like maybe here on sex I put beer tag. So if I come and refresh, have name, sex, and what? And accepting the terms and conditions. So you can realize that if I click on this name, it's not clickable. So if I want it to be clickable and be linked to this input, when I click on name, it should come here. When I click on male, it should come here. When I click on female text, it should come here. To do that, you need one more thing called label. So the label will help us to point or to specify a certain input by text. So if I want this label of name to be connected to this text here, what do? I first give this text what? An ID. And you know an ID must be 1 in the whole HTML document. So I can call it name, okay? I can call it name. Then I'm going to connect this word name to this one. To do that, I will surround this word name with a new tag called label. So to create label, we just simply write label, label like this. Then between here, you put the value, which is name. And then you see here, there is an attribute that comes with the label. In fact, if it does not come, you can write it, which is coming with the label. Inside this label, there's an attribute, and that attribute is called for. So this for, it is asking you what is the ID of where we should connect this label. So if you want to connect this name, the word name here, this label of name, to anything on bottom, you can as well do that. It's okay, as long as you're using the right IDs. So I'm going to use the ID that I've just defined here and put it inside here. I hope we are together. So by doing like that, it's going to, this name part, can you see? Refresh, can you see? When I click on name, tap, it takes me to place where I can write a name. Okay? And I click on name, tap, it takes me there. So if I want to maybe connect these male and female, I can just simply put here label and then give it an ID of what? Of maybe male. And then I come and make sure that my input is also having an I say it is for male, and then I come and make sure that this input of male is having an ID of male. So if I come and refresh, you realize that now if I click on male, it selects for me this. You see? But if I click on female, it's not doing anything. Why? Because I have not set the same thing for female. Let us do it faster. Female should not feel bad. So I'll do that and then come and paste it here. And then after female, I'm going to give this female an ID, the input. Always remember to give the input an ID to where you're connecting to. So ID, I'm going to call it female. And call this one also female. Okay? So this one is going to connect with this one. So if I come and refresh, you can see, now if I click on female, it is speaking. Click on male, it is speaking. Click on input, it automatically selects for me. So that's what you call a what? That's what you call a label. And that's how you can write it. So we proceed to checkbox. So I've looked at checkbox and submit buttons. I've looked at them. So we proceed to attributes. Input attributes. So in HTML, these elements have different what? Have different attributes that we can use to do what? To modify them. The first one, I've already looked at them, and that is what? Those are the first one that we have looked at. There are two: the type attribute and also the ID attribute. So these are the two attributes. Though the name is also an attribute and the value. So all these are what? Are HTML attributes. So if you want to create an HTML attribute, you have different ones. Of course, among them we have what we call the placeholder. We have what we call placeholder. We have what we call we have what we call a name. We have what we call value. We have what we call, apart from those placeholders, I've forgotten others. Okay, but those are the placeholders that we use when implementing HTML form elements. So we have, this is just one type of form elements with with 4 categories: radio, checkbox, type of button, and type of what? Or an input. So let's go ahead and create another file for what? For HTML elements, input elements. So the other, after looking at the input, this one that we just looked at, you have another type of element is called select. So we use select to select, of course, as you can hear. You use select to select either a single option or a multiple options. So let's go ahead and create a new file called select. I'll simply come here and then, or let me keep the same thing. So let me create another, let me put here a horizontal rule. Horizontal rule, just simply put HR. In fact, this element, they're supposed to be inside this form. They're supposed to be inside this form. Okay. So let me go ahead and create some select element. Okay. So I'm going to just put here maybe my H2 and call select element, and maybe put here some HR to separate it from others. Put BR. Okay. So we have an element called select element. So this select element, it helps us to write, to pick option from either a single option or a list, to either pick a single option or a list of options. So let's go ahead and show you how to create a select element. To create a select element, you just simply write select as it is, and then select as it is. Let me write it from scratch. Just open the tag, right select, okay, and make sure you close it. So you can put here now the options, okay. So to put the options of select, we use what we call option. So you just write another tag called option like this, and that's when you can put these elements inside select. So maybe let us say maybe your favorite phone. So you can put maybe iPhone, Samsung, Nokia, Motorola, and maybe Sony, Ericsson. So if I come and refresh, you'll see this is what you created. Okay, let me give it a tag and and an option. So you can just simply put here a label. Sorry, label. It's going to be for phones, and we're going to put here your best phones. Assume that you're collecting that from users. So I'll make sure that I give this one an ID. It's select, not select. Select. Okay. So I'll make sure that I give it an ID, and then give it an ID of a phone. So when I click here, it should be able to expand for me this. You see, we have discussed about labels. So if I come and refresh, you can see your best phone, and when I click here, I have a drop down. Nokia, Samsung, Motorola. If I go for Motorola, that will be picked. So that's how we create drop downs. We use a tag called what? Called select to create a what? To create a drop down. I hope we are together. You have to pause the video and then do it by yourself, not just to keep on watching without doing shit. Okay? So this drop down, we can as well select multiple options. You see here I'm selecting only a single option. Okay? So if you want to select multiple options, you just simply add a tag called multiple. So you just simply come here to select, come at the last part, here at the end of the select, within select, where is it? The label is inside select, that's bad. Okay, within select tag, just put an attribute called multiple. Leave it, don't initialize it to anything. Just put multiple. So if you do like that, your application will allow the users to select multiple options. Can you see? I'm able to select multiple options. I can press Ctrl and hold, and I'll be able to select multiple options. So that is how select multiple works. So we proceed to text area. So we use text area. Let me create also another boundary. Okay, so I'm going to create here another label, and I'm going to call this one maybe your details. Okay, so here I'm going to create what we call a text area. Text area, we use it to collect a large amount of information. For example, if someone is going to explain something and expecting a big story from them, then you have to put them in text area. You should realize that this input, this is how it will be. Okay, so it is just a single line. You cannot press enter. When you press enter, it submits this form. But if you want to allow someone to write freely anything that they want, maybe like details, so just simply create what? A text. You have to create a text area. So let's go ahead and learn how to create a text area. So just simply text area like that. So when you initialize the text area, these are things that you may need to put: the name, the ID, the number of columns, and then let me first remove these ones. It should not confuse you. Okay. Save. Come and refresh. Can you see? That's what you call a text area. This one that you see on top. You see? I'm able to type multiple lines. So if you want to, this select area, this text area has different properties. So among the properties that we have what we call calls. You can guess it. These calls will be used to define different columns. Okay, the number of columns that you want on your text area. So if I want to define, maybe it should have, you see here it is by default having 2 columns. If by default I don't know how many number of columns. So the columns, they are number of columns, they determine width. So if I come and say maybe it should have 10 columns, so if I refresh, the text area will be what? Will be squeezed. So if I say maybe it should have 40 columns, so you see, you can have 40 columns. Okay, so you can press enter, write. I think columns, they are the number of letters. So after doing that, that's what we call columns. We have another attribute called the rows. So just simply add another attribute called the rows. Okay, rows. Sorry, I'm writing code. Rows like this. Okay, so the rows will determine the number of rows there should be in your in your HTML text area. So if I want this this text area to have 3 elements, 3 lines, so I can come and add there 3 and refresh. You see, it is increasing. If I change it maybe to 5, save, come and refresh, you can see it is increasing. So that's what made by text area. It is just like an input area. An input text, an input, but the difference is this one supports even entering, pressing an enter. Can you see? Okay, it also supports, but the input only have different types of input. So that's how we write a HTML text area. We use it to collect maybe someone's detail or anything that may need details. So we proceed. We proceed to different attributes of input. So input, as we discussed, they have different attributes. So among the attributes that the input has, we have things like placeholder. So if I come here on top and write placeholder, this one is going to define something that we're going to observe here. So if I refresh, this is what we see. Okay, so if I give this element a placeholder, I can describe the purpose of that element. You should write your story here. So if I save, come and refresh here, can you see that thing in the background? That yellowish thing? It is not text, but is what? It is the content that we've just put. It is just a directive that tells a user. You may not even put labels. You may create an application with just this placeholder. It is just holding this place as how it is, as how it says. So if I come and start writing, that placeholder will disappear. Okay, so you can use placeholders to define your input. Even if this one I use it still will work, but we use text holders to define the input to the user of what will be their purpose. Okay, so you see, that's how it is. But if I start typing, it will do what? It will disappear. So there are placeholders. Let me look here in the syllabus if I have another thing. We have another element called read only. Read only is an attribute that will allow a user only to read but not type. For example, if I come and add it here, read only, and I save, then if I come and refresh, you see, I cannot type anything. It is blocked, as it says, read only. You cannot write other shit there. So if you want to, that's read only. Sometimes you may need to block a person from logging in or any scenario like that. If you want to block a certain input, you can just simply add another attribute here. Okay, you add another attribute here, and that attribute is called disabled. Okay, for it, it will not even be submitted. It will be there, but it will not be submitted. Can you see the disabled? I cannot even click on it. When I try to click on it, it will fail. Even read only is better than disabled. Read only will allow you to at least point, but here disabled, it will not allow you. We use them in different scenarios, like when you don't want the user to enter that thing manually, but you want him to see it in the form. You can create that form and give the disable part attribute. So disabled, I've looked at it. We have the size attribute. So size attribute will limit the input. I'll have what to call type. So this type can be so many. So if you want to see all the options, just press Ctrl. Come and click on type and then press Ctrl and press space. You see? These are different types. You can collect the date, you can collect passwords, you can collect the range, you can collect. This one will not collect them, but it will be your homework to come and play with them. Just come and search HTML input types. HTML input types. The answers are already there. Just click here and you'll get the whole answers. Okay? Click anywhere, you'll get the whole answers. So, but they are here. They are the different input types. Just press, create your element of input, come in between there, the type, and press Ctrl and space. You'll be able to do what? To get the list of types. So assume that you want to collect date. Just put there date. It is a type of date. Come and refresh here. Can you see? My input has been changed to date. So I can as well pick the date. If I want to collect something like color, just put there the type of color. Refresh. I'll be able to do what? To pick a color. So if I want to collect maybe if I want to collect another thing, just put Ctrl and space. We have button. I'll look at button, date, time, email. So if you want to validate your fields, maybe they should be only emails and not allow another thing. Just put email, save, come and refresh. You see, this one will be an email. So if I write anything, it will not allow me if I try to submit. Unless I do what? Unless it is email. So another thing, you may want to write a password. So just put a type of password, refresh. You see, if I come in password and try to type, everything will be hidden. Okay, everything will be hidden. So that's how we create even the element of what? Of passwords. And that's the attribute that you give. So the remaining ones, you will have to find them by yourself. But you can create other inputs such as which can have a type of a number, and that will allow only numbers. And then you can go ahead and create how to validate number, the minimum, the maximum, the required part. You can go ahead and do it and find them out. So with that much said, you have things like autofocus. But this one I give you as a what? As a homework, which are really simple. But the main important things I've explained them, and I hope you've understood them. So for today, we'll stop from there. And I encourage you to go and practice, because this is going to be our last class of HTML. Then after the next week, we will go ahead and let me first stop recording.